The most powerful force in history wasn't an army, it was a mindset forged in silence, sharpened by thought, and unmoved by chaos. Welcome to the Still Observer, a channel for those who seek mastery of self through the lens of Stoicism, strategy, and timeless philosophy. Napoleon Bonaparte was not born into power. He had no royal lineage, no political privilege. He came from a small island, a modest family, and a fractured nation. And yet, within a few short years, he became the most feared and revered figure in Europe, crowned Emperor of France and commander of legions that reshaped the world. But here's the truth. Most history books don't emphasize. Napoleon's greatest weapon wasn't his military, it was his mind. He lived by a ruthless internal philosophy, one forged by self-belief, unrelenting discipline, and an obsession with destiny. He believed that greatness wasn't inherited, it was seized. To him, the mind wasn't just a tool, it was the battlefield. Control your mind, and you control the world. This wasn't just theory. Napoleon applied it relentlessly. He wasn't content with reacting to life, he dominated it. Every decision, every campaign, every moment of his rise was driven by a psychological edge that few could match. He rewrote the script of what was possible for someone born with nothing, and that script is still a blueprint for anyone chasing personal power today. Napoleon believed that a person's environment was irrelevant if their mind was strong enough. That success was not for the chosen few, but for the few who choose. He saw life as a chessboard, and himself not as a pawn but as the player, always thinking 3 moves ahead, always ready to reshape the game. This video is not about history, it's about power. It's about the unbreakable mindset behind one of the most legendary rises in human history. This is the philosophy of a self-made emperor and how you can use it. Napoleon's rise wasn't a twist of fate, it was the result of a relentless internal drive, a personal doctrine carved from rejection, isolation, and hunger for more. He was born on Corsica in 1769, just a year after France had seized control of the island. To the French elite, he was an outsider, poor, provincial, and unpolished. His accent, his name, even his background marked him as inferior. But while others saw these as weaknesses, Napoleon transformed them into fuel. He sharpened his mind like a weapon, buried himself in books on history, war, and politics. He consumed knowledge with purpose. From an early age, he saw himself not as he was, but as what he would become. While his peers sought comfort and security, Napoleon sought discomfort, challenge, war, and chaos. He once wrote, "Ability is nothing without opportunity." And yet, it was precisely his ability to recognize and create opportunity that set him apart. During the chaos of the French Revolution, while others scrambled to survive, Napoleon climbed. He seized power not by chance but by calculation. Every failure he faced only refined his resolve. He was once imprisoned, accused of being a traitor. He was nearly executed. But even in those moments, Napoleon never abandoned his internal vision. He believed in something very few people truly understand, that the world eventually bends to the will of those who refuse to yield. His early military victories weren't just tactical, they were psychological. He read the fear in others. He exploited hesitation. He understood that the battle is won before the first shot is fired, by the one who wants it more, who sees further, and who refuses to break. Napoleon didn't wait for permission to lead. He made himself indispensable, powerful, and unstoppable. From nothing, he declared himself emperor, not by right, but by force of will. He said, "Imagination rules the world," and lived accordingly. He imagined a future where he was not only powerful, but essential, and then acted with the full force of that belief. Napoleon wasn't reacting to history, he was writing it. With every bold move, he pushed the boundaries of what one man could achieve. That mindset, fearless, focused, self-determined, remains one of the most potent blueprints for greatness the world has ever seen. Napoleon didn't believe in waiting for fate. He believed in forcing it to answer. Throughout his life, he referred to a sense of destiny, but not in a mystical or passive way. For him, destiny wasn't something granted, it was something claimed. He wrote, "Circumstances, what are circumstances? I make circumstances." That one line reveals everything about his inner world. Napoleon wasn't molded by events. He molded events to fit his vision. This idea formed the backbone of his willpower. Napoleon believed in momentum, in the power of forward motion. When others hesitated, he acted. When others doubted, he doubled down. And when the doors closed, he built his own. His will to destiny was a daily, disciplined practice of embodying the future he envisioned. He didn't simply think of becoming emperor. He thought like one, moved like one, led like one, long before the crown ever touched his head. This wasn't arrogance. It was clarity. He knew exactly what he wanted, and more importantly, he believed he deserved it, not because of entitlement, but because of effort. His work ethic bordered on obsessive. He often worked 18-hour days, personally reviewing intelligence reports, maps, dispatches. Every detail of his empire passed through his hands. Destiny to Napoleon meant outworking, outplanning, and outbelieving everyone around him. What separated Napoleon from nearly everyone else wasn't luck or even intelligence. It was his unshakable conviction that the future was his to shape. He believed that one's internal belief must become stronger than any external opposition. Even when his empire was crumbling, even in exile, Napoleon never stopped thinking like a leader. He wrote manifestos, plotted returns, and stayed mentally engaged, because to surrender mentally was to die before the battle was ever lost. This level of belief is rare, and it's what made him nearly untouchable for years. His generals followed him into impossible wars, not just because of tactics, but because they believed in his belief. That kind of conviction is contagious. It makes others rise. It makes nations move. And it starts with one internal decision: I will not be denied my destiny. You don't wait for destiny, you declare it, and then live in a way that makes it inevitable. Napoleon's genius wasn't fueled by chaos. It was carved by discipline. Behind the charisma, behind the battlefield glory, was a man governed by structure. He woke early, worked obsessively, and imposed a rigorous system on everything he touched. From troop formations to personal routines, nothing was left to chance. He understood that emotion is unreliable, but discipline is a constant. And for Napoleon, discipline was not just a trait, it was a strategy. He was meticulous to a fault. He read reports line by line. He wrote orders with surgical precision. His ability to digest massive amounts of information and respond with clarity wasn't luck. It was the result of years of mental conditioning. Napoleon trained his mind like a general trains an army, with relentless repetition and tactical sharpness. He believed that greatness required the elimination of indulgence, distraction, and disorder. This included exercising self-control. He avoided needless mingling, spoke quietly, and tended to keep to himself unless there was a compelling need to do so. Why? Since he was aware of the energy cost of dispersed attention, he saved his authority for important decisions rather than squandering it on appearances. Napoleon got ready for the next campaign as others rejoiced over their successes. His restlessness was deliberate motion rather than irritation. The battlefield is a scene of constant chaos, he once remarked. The person who manages that chaos, both his own and the enemy's, will emerge victorious. Internal control is the first step. When you control your routines, concentration, and responses, the outside world begins to change. Discipline, to Napoleon, was the highest form of self-respect. It meant honoring your vision even when motivation disappears. It meant doing what others avoid over and over again. And it meant forging an identity so solid that no circumstance could shake it. This wasn't glamorous, but it was powerful. Napoleon didn't chase motivation. He commanded consistency. Napoleon didn't just fight battles. He waged psychological warfare. To him, war was never just about weapons or soldiers. It was about anticipation, perception, and influence. He once said, "The moral is to the physical as 3 is to 1. That meant mindset, fear, and belief played a far greater role than brute force. Napoleon's true battleground was the human psyche. He studied his enemies with surgical focus, not just their troop counts or positions, but their habits, their fears, their weaknesses. He knew that if he could manipulate what they believed, he could win before the first cannon fired. He often spread misinformation, launched surprise moves, and used speed as a psychological weapon. Where others hesitated, Napoleon acted with precision. His unpredictability created doubt, and doubt is a disease in war. But Napoleon's mental edge wasn't just aimed outward, it was aimed inward too. He trained himself to stay composed in crisis, to think clearly when chaos erupted. His ability to detach emotionally from the moment and assess it strategically was what made him truly dangerous. He did not panic. He observed, calculated, and struck. He also understood people deeply. He inspired loyalty not through charisma alone, but by understanding what his followers needed: vision, purpose, certainty. He gave them that, and they gave him everything. Soldiers marched across frozen fields for him, not out of duty, but belief. Because Napoleon gave them meaning. His enemies often had larger armies, but Napoleon had the edge where it mattered most, in the mind. He created pressure, he weaponized belief, and he dismantled opponents not just by outmaneuvering them, but by outthinking them before they ever knew they were defeated. Mastering the mind of the enemy begins with mastering your own. Long after his fall from power, Napoleon's physical empire crumbled, but his mental empire endured. He didn't just leave behind conquered territories or rewritten laws. He left behind a blueprint, a way of thinking that still inspires leaders, strategists, and creators. Napoleon's true legacy isn't just what he did, it's how he thought. His philosophy of self-mastery, relentless ambition, and psychological control outlived every battle he fought. Even in exile, when his enemies thought they had stripped him of everything, Napoleon remained dangerous. Why? Because his power was never rooted in thrones or armies. It was rooted in the belief that he could shape the world. That belief can't be imprisoned. It can't be silenced. That's why, even today, his presence echoes through military academies, boardrooms, books, and biographies. He's remembered not just as a conqueror, but as a symbol of mental supremacy. What does that mean for you? It means your mind is your empire, your habits, your beliefs, your self-control. These are your battlegrounds. The world may reward surface victories, but lasting power belongs to those who conquer themselves. To think like Napoleon is to refuse excuses, to attack fear, and to train your mind with the same intensity others train their bodies. You don't need an army to win. You need clarity, discipline, vision. You need a mind that can't be rattled, a spirit that can't be broken. That is the mindset of an emperor, even if you never wear a crown. The throne Napoleon built wasn't made of gold. It was forged in thought, discipline, and belief. And that kind of throne, it can never be taken, only inherited by those willing to master themselves. His empire may be gone, but his mindset, that lives forever. If you're ready to stop reacting and start thinking like a strategist, if you value clarity over noise and strength of mind over strength in numbers, then this is your place. Subscribe to the Still Observer and begin mastering the one empire you'll rule forever, yourself.